Your Excellencies, heads of state of our continent, leaders of our high institutions, Dr. Madoun Toure, Secretary General of ITU, and Jean-Philippe of IFC, honorable ministers and senior government officials, distinguished delegates to the Transform Africa Summit, members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to Rwanda and to the Transform Africa Summit. I wish to acknowledge the support of the International Telecommunications Union and in particular Secretary General Dr. Madoun Toure for their support in organizing this summit. We met 6 years ago here in Kigali at the Connect Africa Summit, and since then many changes have taken place both globally and on our continent. A digital revolution is underway that has the power to transform societies. With greater access to information, there is no doubt that African countries can kick our development into a higher gear. To do so, we must understand how technology is opening up new opportunity and what we can do to prepare for it. During periods of great technological change, such as this one, success belongs to those who can innovate and those who seize the available opportunities. Today, we meet to see how we all, leaders, experts, CEOs of ICT corporations, and other business leaders can forge partnerships so that we maximize these opportunities and make them available to our people. In particular, we want to equip the African youth with these technologies so that we can leapfrog to where the developed world is. In Rwanda, we certainly believe that ICTs have the potential to boost our economy and to improve the living standards of our people considerably. We also believe that the way forward is the partnership between the public and the private sectors, which is why many of the private sector entrepreneurs in the ICT field are well represented here, and you are welcome. I'm sure my colleagues, excellencies, heads of state, will expand on specific ways that we can leverage ICTs and work together to transform our continent in the interaction we are going to have. Distinguished audience, excellencies, heads of state, I thank you and wish you a very fruitful discussion.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed for those opening thoughts, and many of which we'll be exploring shortly. As you said, a changing landscape is one that we face and that we're living in, particularly since that summit of 2007, and how important those public-private partnerships can be and need to be employed to make a real difference in transforming Africa. Well, with that being said, I think the statistics pretty much speak for themselves. We've been hearing them through our speeches and the presentations that we heard so far. Since that Connect Africa session in 2007, the average internet penetration has only increased from an average of 3.9% to 16%. When we look at the numbers, that's significant. It's huge and could even be described as exponential. However, 16% leaves quite a gap that still needs to be met in terms of delivering the future today. So, Your Excellencies, our challenge is to find a way so that the majority of Africans can have access to the internet, that broadband becomes a common form in our continent, and so that we can transform the lives of our people. So my first question to all of you, and I'm just going to ask that you begin with your opening thoughts and your opening ideas about this challenge that we're facing. How quickly can we achieve this transformation? Should ICT even be given a priority, given the many challenges that we're already facing? So perhaps if I could ask you, Your Excellency, the President of Kenya, Mr. President Uhuru Kenyatta, if you could start by sharing your thoughts. How do we move this agenda forward, sir?
Thank you. Let me begin first by thanking our host, President Kagame, for hosting this particular conference, and also congratulating him for the tremendous progress that Rwanda has made over the years in terms of advancement in ICT. Let me then say that if we look back into the ages and look at the developed Western countries, the United States, Europe, and ask ourselves what drove their economies, it was the railway line, it was sea transport, it was air transport. These are still challenges that we on the African continent are still struggling to catch up on in order to connect our people, in order to have free flow of goods amongst ourselves on the African continent. But the true and single driver that will propel us from a developing to a developed world in the shortest possible time is for us to recognize that the railway lines, the sea lanes of yesterday is broadband today. Broadband gives us the ability to leapfrog and to catch up with the rest of the world. Broadband gives us the capacity to bring minds, innovation, and create opportunities for our people. There is great opportunity on the African continent. If you look at the world at large, you have an aging population. Innovation requires young minds, and Africa today is full of young minds craving and looking for opportunity, and broadband is one way of creating a vast new world for our young people and propelling Africa to prosperity. We in Kenya have latched onto this fact. And especially over the last 10 years, we have made tremendous progress. We still have a very long way to go, but we have made tremendous progress in terms of advancement in ICT, in laying our fiber network. We've made huge advances in mobile connectivity, huge advances also in new apps that have made financial inclusion much deeper than it ever was. I think we've moved over the last 10 years from something like 20% financial inclusion to something like 50%, just as a result of the use of ICT, M-Pesa, and other such applications that have been developed over the period of time. We are trying to move to see how we can get government services also being available online, with the understanding that one of the vices and one of the problems that we're faced with as a continent, as a nation, is corruption. Through the use of ICT, the challenges of corruption are greatly reduced because the interaction amongst people is removed. We are moving towards ensuring that we use ICT also for security. We have a great challenge, and we're trying to emulate our Rwandese brothers and sisters by introducing laptops for our children, because we want them to begin, right from their basic education, to know that ICT is one of the greatest tools that it doesn't know rich or poor, it doesn't know tribe, it doesn't know what country you belong to. It breaks all barriers. And if we bring up our children, right from the beginning and allow them to interact amongst themselves, we do have the capacity to actually make this continent integrate much faster and bring ourselves much closer together. I think, for me, the greatest challenge that we have is we have many competing interests. And sometimes we tend to relegate ICT to the back burner. As we say, we have challenges of health, road infrastructure, and other many challenges that we have. But I think by working together, I think by introducing new technologies, as I've just seen right now, that can help us reduce the cost, and understanding that this is not a luxury good, but actually an instrument for transformation. We can use ICT to deal even with some of those challenges that I'm mentioning, health, education, job creation, and our ability to prioritize it, and also to take advantage of those who have developed technologies that allow us to spread the infrastructure in a cost-effective manner. This is what we all need to work on and to focus on, and I believe going forward, ICT, and in fact, even when we had our own infrastructure summit yesterday, we all did agree, as we met with my older brothers from Rwanda, Uganda, and South Sudan, that ICT is going to be a key item on our agenda going forward, because we believe that this can really help us.
Okay. Mr. President, thank you very much indeed.
Transform our region. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you very much indeed for your opening thoughts. If I could turn to you, Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Gabon, President Ali Bongo Ondimba, what are your opening thoughts on this very important conversation that we're having?
Thank you. First, I'd like to start by thanking our host, President Paul Kagame, and the people of the government of Rwanda, inviting us to once more be able to come and enjoy the hospitality of the Rwandan people. We also want to congratulate the President on the achievement of his country. We also want to recognize Mr. Secretary General Toure for organizing, this summit. we have many priorities in Africa, and it would be fair to say that now that recognize that ICT is probably the priority of priorities. Because, you know, the use of ICT can really make us make that jump into the 21st century. It makes information available and affordable to all of us, and it offers numerous opportunities. And among those opportunities, you have e-government, e-health, e-education. And I think the starting point should be education if we want to transform the lives of Africans. And that's why, from my point of view, the program of one laptop for children is very important, and it should be extended to all African countries, and then probably be one of the main objectives for the African Union. Of course, I'll have more to say about what we have done and what we're trying to do in Gabon. But very important things just for me to, if you allow me to say. For every 10% of penetration in broadband, it induces an increase of 1.2% in GDP, according to the World Bank. So you see the importance for us, to really decide what our priorities should be. ICT, the use of ICT, also important for us to help switch from the informal sector to the formal sector, and increasing, increasing incomes for African states. And also in ICT infrastructure, key to attract foreign direct investment that we all need. So basically, it comes down to, as Secretary Toure said, what are we doing here, leaders on this podium? It's important for us to dream and wake up and make that dream a reality, or else it becomes a nightmare. So rest assured, Mr. Toure, I sleep well and I dream well. In fact, my problem is that probably sometimes I wish my dream could, go longer and then not wake up so fast. But we wake up with the resolution to implement. And we do have that vision. But to make it, we need your help. We need to be all together and recognize what is important for our continent. And that's the reason why, when my brother Paul invited me, I came. I came to listen to all of you. Because listening, sharing, experiences is very important in what we want to do. We talk about accept, share, and see well, and then we're able to think, well, I've done this not so well. Maybe I could correct, or it didn't really reinforce for us the determination to move forward. And my determination is as strong and even stronger after listening to all of you. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed for your opening thoughts. Perhaps we can turn to the Republic of Mali now and ask Your Excellency, President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, what your opening thoughts are about this journey that we must take.
Thank you very much. I won't deliver my speech totally in English, because I'm not as fluent as my younger Ali. And but I just want to make something, tell my friend and brother Uhuru that also all minds could contribute. President Kagame, I would like to thank you very warmly for inviting me to attend this so important and so high-level meeting here in Kigali. That's by my very first coming out since I'm in charge of my country. Also, I would like to congratulate Secretary General Touré and tell him how I'm proud of him. But please, no longer make confusion between my friend and brother Uhuru and me. OK. Je voudrais ici dire tout le plaisir que j'ai de me trouver ici parmi cet aréopage mondial autour de cette question cruciale de communication. Venant d'un pays, je le dis sans aucune espèce de prétention, pays vaste, d'un problème de logistique, problème de communication, 703 communes à gérer, dans un système démocratique qui souhaite toujours aller de l'avant. Comment faire sans cet outil moderne? Et je me reprends à repenser à ce mot de Jean-Jacques Servan-Schreiber dans les années 70 qui disait de ne pas avoir le vertige devant tout le gap de développement auquel l'Afrique faisait face. Et que grâce aux microprocesseurs, nous rattraperions rapidement tout ce chemin-là. Comment ne pas le croire aujourd'hui quand on voit ce qui a été fait ici au Rwanda, qui est pour nous tous un espoir. L'espoir que quand la volonté politique est à l'œuvre, l'on peut déplacer les montagnes. Président Kagame, ce que l'on voit ici à Kigali, ce qui vient de nous être dit par notre frère Robert de la société, la SFI, est assez réjouissant. Ce que vous avez fait comme progrès dans Doing Business in Africa, Doing Business tout court, de 75e à 32e, prouve le bond fabuleux qui a été fait ici. Et je voudrais dire que dans un pays vaste comme le Mali, nous avons très vite compris l'importance de ces nouvelles technologies pour nous. Et pourquoi nous avons libéralisé le secteur de la communication au point qu'il y a 10 ans, même pas qu'il y avait 10% de connexions téléphoniques, nous sommes aujourd'hui à près de 92%. C'est quand même un bond énorme. Et nous avons 2 opérateurs téléphoniques. Il y a une 3e licence qui est en débat. C'est vous dire notre engagement total à faire en sorte que nous soyons de cette nouvelle révolution qui, sans nul doute, a bouleversé et va encore bouleverser le visage du monde. Transformer le monde, transformer l'Afrique, bien sûr. Et le rêve, nous le faisons tous, mais éveillés, pas endormis. Et voilà ce que je voulais dire. Sans que ce soit une réponse à mon frère et ami Ali, parce qu'il l'a dit, nous rêvons, mais il s'agit bien de rêve et que cela ne soit jamais un cauchemar. Merci.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us. And as you said, perhaps wisdom comes with time, and you certainly have a lot of wisdom that you're sharing with us today. Thank you very much indeed. And we look forward to hearing a little bit more from you. Now, Your Excellency and President Kagame, your brothers on stage have been pointing to you quite a lot in terms of successes so far and rolling out this ICT in the country. But I'm sure that even you, despite the achievements already, you still have a vision for your country and for your continent. Share your thoughts with us about what that vision might be.
Thank you. First of all, what comes to my mind relative to the subject of discussion today, I think we are talking about transformation and how ICTs, how broadband plays into that transformation, the role of ICTs, and therefore what we can do to enhance ICTs, broadband, in that transformation, and how transformation is also about people, and therefore we are saying how do we bring our citizens to participate and to benefit as well. That's where I want to start from. The second step is about saying, I think my fellow leaders here have already said very important things. And I wanted to say, they mentioned, for example, issue of many priorities that we have to attend to, and how that may create certain competition between these priorities, and maybe if we don't get it right from the start, we end up with some difficulties. So in answering the question or giving my views, I want to ask myself a question. In the case of Rwanda, where we have made some modest progress in this particular area of using ICTs for transformation, but also progress in a general sense, I want to ask myself, because some other people have come up with different questions or viewpoints of saying that maybe investing in ICTs, in broadband, in 4G, LTE, like we have seen, is a luxury. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. We should be doing something else. Those questions have come up. And based on this, I asked myself the question that, okay, where would Rwanda be, or would Rwanda have been better off if we hadn't actually invested in ICTs? Is there something we have missed, or have we lost anything by actually doing that? You know, my answer to that and my discovery in the process of transformation is that actually ICTs have played a very important role, because ICTs being part of the infrastructure we have invested in has cut across in every sector and made its own mark and contribution, not only in that particular private sector, but also overall for the whole country. It's about employment, it's about wealth creation, it's about education, it's health, it's agriculture, it's in terms of provision of information based on which we are able to generate the kind of knowledge that is required to be able to make progress in every sector of our society. So the answer to that, even to myself, has been no. I think we've been better off with investing in the ICTs, as well as we have invested in other types of infrastructure and the general development of our people and the kind of capabilities we have also been investing in, than if we had continued with investments in other areas and not in this one. This is the answer to those who think that investing in infrastructure or broadband or infrastructure of ICTs is a luxury. It's not a luxury. It's actually a necessity, in my view. And again, the issue is, if I can't believe in the theories that speak to that, at least I want to believe what I'm able to see with my own eyes. So what I see, so what I'm able to see is that it has worked, and it has supported every other effort we have made in the different sectors. So investing in ICTs, investing in broadband, investing in 4G LTE is useful. In fact, that in Rwanda we have decided to look at ICT as a utility. Like we look at water, like we have electricity, like so. Even we have encouraged our people. You have seen some high rises around town, and we say, when you are making provisions in your premises, you have pipes for water, you have cables for electricity, remember to put provisions for ICT as part of the utility that so far, I haven't seen anything to discourage me to keep the conversation going with our people, to continue with the effort and the investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency, President Paul Kagame. Let's turn to our newest African nation, South Sudan, and President Salva Kiir Mayardit. You have many challenges on your plate at the moment, starting a new country. What are your thoughts on how ICT can play a role in that new beginning, as it were?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. And first of all, we'd like to thank our host, His Excellency, President Paul Kagame, for inviting all of us to attend this very important meeting. And of course, as you have said, we are the newest nation on the continent, 2 years old. And as the newest country, South Sudan's vision is to become an educated, prosperous, and a secure nation by 2040. Our country, even more than the rest of the continent, is limited by the lack of infrastructure and communication. This is a legacy of the 2 wars we fought to gain our freedom. Presently, we have 4 mobile phone operators in South Sudan, and we are struggling to launch the 5th one. So, with the 4 mobile phones, they reach less than half of the population of South Sudan because of the reasons that I have just mentioned. But our government and people will continue to struggle to avoid these slow and expensive satellite links for our internet communication. Most of our people have no reliable electricity. And so, for now, we have put the SSTV, and SSTV, I believe, can be accessed all over the globe. And we are working on how to improve or to promote the ICT. We have agreed with our brothers and sisters in Kenya to have a fiber optic connection from the Indian Ocean through Kenya to South Sudan. In South Sudan, we would want to develop a climate that is favorable to international investment. This will help us build the roads, power supplies, schools and hospitals. And this will take us to the transformation of agriculture, and that, of course, will create jobs for the youth. And by creating jobs, you change the life of the people. This is, a very rough road that we are driving on. And as it was said by His Excellency Kagame, we are not discouraged not to drive on it, because we know even if the child was to be born 2 years ago, that child will not be able to walk straight and to run as fast as you may need your son or your daughter to run. We are still too young to do all these things. The second thing is that easy access to information is going to be essential, and especially as South Sudanese are now seeing the importance of education after the war, and many children today have enrolled. It is time that they know the ICT, which was said to be the priority of the priorities, will go together with all these priorities. And these school children will have to access, to be given the laptops so that they grow with the ICT technology. It will also underpin all the work in the areas of democratic governance and poverty reduction. South Sudan is keen to explore all the new approaches which can help us deliver basic services to our citizens in the country. In this area, we look forward to our regional neighbors and so that we learn from them, because they have the experience which they have gained since their independence, and the technologies such as Ushahidi and M-Pesa, which are being used in Kenya, can still be easily adopted in South Sudan. And that can also help transform our way of life. But for this to happen, we need reliable electricity. And so that the population also can have access. We need a country which is schooled, population that is educated, so that they take the advantage of these possibilities. To resolve the issue of the electricity, we have started to develop our hydropower potentials at Fula Rapids near Nimule and Katre in the Imatong Mountains. These are within reach that we can do, and with the help from all our partners, this is achievable. So the issue of electricity to the people will not be in for long. We have also considerable potential to use solar power. And that one, we have sun, very hot sun in South Sudan, that if we have the solar, you cannot think of generators or whatever that you want, you will have enough power supply. Our problem is the human resource development. In the human resource development, our country lags behind, very far away, because of the reasons that I have mentioned before, the war. And our government will therefore have to make efforts to invest in both formal and alternative education and training, so that we are able to produce the trained people that we need. This is the situation in South Sudan, and we are confident that all these problems can be managed. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us. And I think it's fair for me to say that everybody in this room and on the continent certainly wish you well in building your new country. And I think your call from help from your neighbors and partners is heard today. Let's turn to Burkina Faso, a country that has done pretty well with regional cooperation in particular, setting out fiber optic connectivity with Ghana and Togo as partners, as well as ongoing infrastructure programs rolling out across the country. Your Excellency, perhaps you can share your thoughts with us about the future that you see for Burkina Faso and how ICT can play a role in that.
Merci. Je voudrais tout d'abord, bien sûr, remercier notre frère, le président Kagame, pour sa deuxième invitation qui m'est parvenue après celle de 2006, de 2007. Voilà. Alors, dans cette même salle, je crois qu'à l'occasion, nous avions bien sûr lancé une grande ambition, c'est-à-dire connecter l'Afrique, parce que nous y voyons un intérêt certain pour que l'Afrique ne reste plus en marge du monde. Parce que si nous avions par le passé été soumis à la colonisation, à l'esclavage, c'est bien parce que nous nous sommes détachés du monde, de la civilisation, qui était celle de l'époque, une civilisation faite de progrès, parce que l'homme a quitté l'âge de la pierre taillée, allé à l'âge de la pierre polie, à l'âge des métaux, et continué à l'énergie électrique, etc. Et l'Afrique, pendant longtemps, est restée à côté de cela. Alors, et je crois qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons ici même, dans cette salle, nous avons pris des engagements de faire en sorte que l'Afrique reste donc dans l'humanité, reste dans le monde. Et depuis, nous avons travaillé, nous avons réfléchi à travers le continent et nous sommes là à nouveau pour dire que le coup d'essai a été un coup de maître et qu'aujourd'hui, à travers, bien sûr, d'abord le Rwanda que nous avons pu visiter un peu, nous avons écouté, à travers aussi d'autres États du continent, nous avons vu des progrès remarquables qui montrent que nous pouvons rattraper nos grands retards à partir de la connectivité. Alors c'est pour cela que des pays comme le Burkina Faso, bien sûr géographiquement bien placés parce que nous sommes au centre de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, nous avons un grand intérêt pour nous-mêmes comme pour les voisins et pour notre progrès réel, véritable, d'aller vers cet outil très puissant qui peut, bien sûr, comme nous l'avons dit ici, nous aider à créer plus d'emplois, améliorer la vie, le quotidien des hommes et des femmes, renforcer les capacités d'apprentissage, de connaissance, du savoir. Et bien sûr, comme cela a été dit, les infrastructures restent pour nous une première préoccupation. C'est pour cela que nous avons l'électrification que nous, dans le cadre du programme d'Afrique de l'Ouest, que nous connectons notre pays avec l'ensemble des voisins. Mais nous sommes en train de créer un centre technopole où nous allons avoir l'atterrissage le point virtuel, nous allons avoir donc un technopole, nous allons avoir pour les opérateurs un espace comme centre de recherche, nous allons avoir à ce niveau un centre d'échange d'Internet pour nous permettre d'élargir encore les capacités que nous avons déjà pu obtenir ces dernières années. Alors, c'est dire donc que nous sommes dans le processus qui est engagé ici à Kigali depuis 2007, que nous poursuivons avec beaucoup d'enthousiasme parce que, comme vous le voyez, le leadership du président Kagame nous entraîne tous avec plus d'engagement, plus de volonté. Mais aussi c'est parce que sur le terrain, nous sentons que nous voyons des résultats. Voilà. Merci bien. Voilà.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed. Your Excellency, President of Burkina Faso, President Blaise Compaoré. Right, now, President Museveni, Your Excellency, Uganda is already a country that's moving quite quickly in terms of penetration, internet usage. And I wonder if you could share your thoughts with us about what happens next. What do you see the role of ICT playing in a country that's already enjoying quite a lot of penetration?
Your Excellency, President Kagame, Your Excellency, the heads of state and government who are here, electronics, including ICT, helps us to solve a number of issues. Automation of machines, storing and retrieving information, identifying persons quickly. This is because somebody's picture is taken beforehand and his fingerprints or her fingerprints are all stored in a central store. And when he commits a crime, you can quickly know who it was. Voting. We normally have problems of voting. In Uganda, we have got multiple voting. Somebody registers more than once because he wants to cheat. And you don't have easy way of knowing that using the human being, you know, just by looking at his face. The wage bill. Somebody says he has got 132,000 teachers, when in fact there are only 100,000. The other 30,000 are what we call ghost teachers. Defense. The countries which are advanced use electronics for making weapons to kill other people. And for us, we're just here running around with human muscle only. So there's no doubt that electronics and ICT. I was trying to find out from my scientists what is the difference between electronics and ICT. And somebody was telling me that ICT is electronics applied to information. That's what somebody told me. Maybe the scientists can clarify that. There is no doubt about the importance of electronics and ICT. However, in my language, this is what we call okunyata. Okunyata, what would you call it in Kinyarwanda? Okunyata means to eat food without sauce.
Dry food. It's dry food.
How do they call it in Kinyarwanda?
Kurumanga.
In Kinyarwanda, they call it okurumana. Okurumanga. Now, you know, Africans, we must always think for ourselves. Part of the problem has been copying here, copying there, and you find you end up with mistakes. I don't want us to only talk about ICT and forget the other sectors. Because if you do that, you're going to be in a problem. ICT must assist agriculture, because that is a fundamental sector. You cannot just sit in an office and you just communicate efficiently. You communicate rumors from... and you are using smartphones to do that. And you don't grow ibijumba. Ibijumba are sweet potatoes in Kinyarwanda. What are you communicating about? Just rumors. Yes, because you can communicate rumors. Oh, so and so has got nice hair for the ladies. In the end, you need ibijumba to eat. So this ICT must help agriculture. That's a fundamental sector. The second fundamental sector is industry, factories, machines. How will electronics and this stored information help to make efficient the manufacturing? The third sector is services. Services, hotels, transport, and all that. How will electronics help services? the fourth sector is actually ICT itself. ICT is not only a facilitator, but it is a sector in itself. Why? Because in Uganda and in a number of other countries, the young people are now using ICT to do what they call outsourcing of jobs. Somebody can sit here in Kigali, he's an accountant, and does the bookkeeping for a company in the United States, and send the work over the internet. And in the following morning, the work is in the US and they pay him. So ICT is not only a facilitator, but these days when I'm talking to Ugandans, I put it as sector number 4. For me, sector number 1 is agriculture. Number 2, industry. Number 3, services. Number 4, ICT, not only as a facilitator, but as a sector by itself. This is how I am handling it in Uganda, especially when I'm talking to the young people about employment. Now, the 5th sector is public service. Public service, I think that's what you were talking about, this e-learning and all that. This is part of the public service, the government, to run the government. So, if you avoid okunyata, ukurumangan, ICT will be very useful. But if we also go off and say ICT, we forget agriculture, we forget manufacturing, we forget, I think we may be in another problem. Because a few years ago, I was hearing these Europeans, they were saying they no longer needed manufacturing, that Europe was now post-industrial. That's what they were calling themselves. That they were now in services, only services, financial services, and speculating with money and running up and down. Now, the last I heard about the Europeans, that they were in a very bad situation. Now, I don't want us to be in that mistake, to just become unidimensional. ICT, and then you forget all these other sectors. It must be integrated. We must, but it's very, very efficient. Of course, it makes things much faster. We who are in the army also know this from the army side. You no longer need to do all the calculations using tables and all that. You can just get quick results. So there's no doubt. But it needs to be integrated with the whole economy, not just be talked about as if it can stand alone without the rest of the economy. I thank you very much.
Your Excellency, on behalf of everybody here, we thank you very much indeed. As always, very entertaining, but at the same time, very important messages that you share with us. And I think it's no rumor that you are making ICT work in your country, and that it must be applied to help and build our countries and our people's lives. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for your thoughts.
Well, I didn't give what we are doing in Uganda. About the ICT, the little connection we have done, the broadband, we have put it in 22 towns out of so many towns. Out of we have only put it in 22 towns out of 112. The backbone and the persons who are using smartphones are now 6 million. This is just only 20% of the population. They are the ones accessing the internet. So we are still far away. But the little we have done, And we have also linked with the undersea cable in Mombasa. The immediate result has been to make telephone calls very much cheaper than they used to be by linking with the sea cable. Because in the past, we were making international calls through satellite link. And that was very expensive. They say about 5 times more expensive or something like that. So we are moving, but please, we shouldn't kurumanga ICT. It needs to go with all the other foods. Like last night, you remember we had dessert and we had, this man was very efficient in telling us the soup is coming. So we had a balanced meal last night. So let us please have a balanced plan. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. President. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the thoughts that our excellencies have on their minds and how they see the vision of ICTs going forward in their countries and on the continent as a whole. And I think what was coming through quite strongly here is the importance of partnerships, that government can lay out policies, government can create enabling environments, government can create a situation where investment is possible. But for the circle to be complete, these partnerships require the private sector to come to the party as well. And I'd just like perhaps to turn to the audience, because I know that we have a number of companies here, huge organizations that people will recognize, Google, Korea Telecom, Facebook, Samsung, Cisco, Microsoft, and even Amara Group, which is homegrown, we're proud to say. But maybe the question I need to put to you as the private sector, and maybe we can get some output from you, is to our excellencies here, what commitment, Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed. All right, the most important companion, your hat, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, our thanks to the President of Uganda, His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni. And we certainly thank him for his contribution and sharing his thoughts with us at this very important gathering. Thank you very much indeed, sir. So, as I was saying, perhaps we have a blueprint, we have a document, the Africa Smart Manifesto, and it needs your input and your help. So, the question that we put to you as the private sector, what contributions, we've heard the IFC make huge commitment, what commitments, what contributions are you going to make in your areas to help advance this cause of growing ICTs on the continent? I wonder if there is a representative from Microsoft. You have affected our lives in so many ways for so long. So perhaps it's time, yes, come forward. A big hand, ladies and gentlemen, for our representatives from Microsoft.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address this very important body. Your Excellencies, ministers, distinguished guests. My name is Robert Kaihura, and I have the privilege of serving as Microsoft's Director of Legal and Corporate Affairs covering the Sub-Saharan African region. And if you'll indulge me for just 1 minute on a personal note, I think it's important for me to call out the fact that my parents were born here in Rwanda back in the 50s, or early 50s and late 40s. And I was personally born, I was born in Uganda, where I left when I was 10 years old. So I have to say, it is remarkable, it is humbling for me to, after 30 years of living in Europe and in the US, to have the chance to come back home and be a part of this incredible. one thing that most people don't appreciate about Microsoft is we are a partner-based company. And I think it's important to call that out. We have close to 600,000 partners across the world, and across Africa, it's somewhere close to 10,000. And I think when we think of the challenges that we're facing across the region, one of the challenges that we consistently hear from our partners is the challenge that His Excellency, the President of South Sudan, called out, which is skills, and capacity building. And as we think about the future, in particular in ICT, one of the investments that we've made, or commitments that we've made in the recent past, is to focus on developing skills in ICT across the region. We've committed to, within the next 3 years, upskill close to 200,000 youth, okay? 100,000 recent graduates and 100,000 in our partner ecosystem and across the region generally. So I think if there is one thing we would ask to continue to strengthen our partnerships on is with respect to investments in education, in science and technology, in engineering in particular, in math. Because if we give these young people that we all know we have in abundance across the region the talent, they will take care of the rest. It's certainly something that's been proven out around the world, and certainly in the United States. And in particular, one of the things that we're going to take is to invest in free online education that they can access. So the conversations we're having about the importance of broadband will help accelerate that. So the first ask would be just to continue to partner very strongly on education and investment, increasing investments in that space. The second piece, which the gentleman from the IFC called out, was obviously the importance of the ease of doing business across the region. It's hard to imagine an industry anywhere in the world that has been impacted more by young people than technology. We have countless examples of young people dropping out of top colleges across the world, frankly, to start companies. And if we can create an environment where these talented young people across the region can start companies with ease and develop their ideas, and obviously have a legal framework in place to protect their intellectual property, we're confident that the rest will take care of itself. So I think those are the two thoughts that I would share in terms of areas that we're heavily invested in, and opportunities that we think we can continue to partner with your governments going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Microsoft, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us and your commitment to the development of our continent going forward. And I think a lot of people here are very happy to hear that you are of Rwandese heritage. And so to you I say, Murakaza neza iwacu mu Rwanda. Right, okay, so that's one organization that's, and they've told us what they hope to see and what they hope to do. Is there somebody from Facebook? You have completely invaded our lives, Facebook, I must say. Who can function without at least going onto a Facebook page at least once, Facebook and Twitter? So is there somebody from Facebook here that perhaps could just share their thoughts with us? All right, they're possibly building another Sorry? Is there? Are you? No. Okay, he's just waving to me. All right. Okay, well, what about somebody from Oracle? That's another big organization. Is there? Do you know what? The microphone's going to come to you. It's going to be much easier so that you don't have to struggle. Yeah, yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. My name is Gürhan Kalelioğlu. I'm managing Africa, Turkey, and Central Asia. I would like to thank everyone, first of all, for such a nice organization, because it's a great opportunity for everyone for sharing, learning, and also networking. I also re-emphasize what Microsoft say. For us, skill development and capacity building are the #1 priorities, especially in Africa. If I were in the president's shoes, I mean, what will be my dream? I was thinking about this dream metaphor a little bit, and my dream will be how I can create employment for my people, how I can create more jobs for my people, how I can increase their welfare, how I can make them have a better life, healthier life. So when I think those things, Oracle and all other information technology companies will be serving you to realize your dreams. So I will share with a small story I experienced in Nigeria very recently. We have an office in Victoria Island in Lagos, and when we go up the elevator, when we use the elevator, there is a young fellow there who pressed the button. I mean, just his job is pressing the buttons, and that's all. I noticed that he's reading a book. I look at, and the book was about Oracle database administration. I was impressed because, I mean, a young guy who is pressing the buttons is reading this book. And I asked him, why you are reading this book? And he told me that he wants to become a certified Oracle database engineer one day. So wow. People in Africa have dreams. I mean, this is very important. Besides the president's dream, I think people's dreams are much more important. I think if you have people like that, the future of Africa will be great. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed to Oracle. And we certainly look forward as a continent to the skills upgrading that you can help us with and realizing some of those young people's dreams. Now, talking about young people, this has come up quite a lot in conversation. We've heard our excellencies address that. And we know that Africa is a very young continent. In fact, something in the order of 70% of our population can be considered young. And so when we talk about ICTs, they're probably the major users of these as well. We cannot possibly have a conversation about the future without the custodians of that future having their word and their thoughts. And in fact, you may have heard earlier, there's a parallel summit that's taking place just down the road where the youth have come together to have this important discussion and share their thoughts about perhaps the future they want to create for themselves. So we thought that in an audience such as this, it would be important to find out from the youth, a voice from the young, perhaps what contribution they want to make or they can make as we look forward to this smart Africa with this manifesto that we have. And we have a very successful young lady with us by the name of Clarice. If I could ask you to show yourself and just share your thoughts with us. You're a young person, successful. What do you think young people can do? What's your vision as a young person for the future that is about to unfold upon us?
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, it's such an honor for me to be here today. And the role that the youth can play is one that I have seen me and my colleagues play for the past 3 years, running our mobile technologies company that we started while we were at the university, actually, in our college classroom. And it's one that's really simple, and we see it every day when clients walk into our office and tell us, you kids get this stuff. We need your help. So as we build applications in agriculture, healthcare, education, it's one simple thing that has really been significant as young people. Technology is almost second nature to us. And we really get these things, and we have seen these solutions come out of us, innovations that are transforming our communities, and that is a role that I feel is really significant that we can play. And not only just innovating to meet the needs in our communities, but also be inventors and set the trends in technology, and not just continuously customize or contextualize the technologies that we see, but be the leaders in inventing these technologies. Thank you.
Clarice, thank you very much indeed. And don't these young people just have this confidence, this swagger? And it's just so refreshing to see. And you know what, if we don't pay attention, they're just going to get on with it anyway. And we're probably going to have to find ourselves catching up and say, what just happened? But Clarice, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your vision. And I think our excellencies certainly have taken that into cognizance going forward. I know that we push for time, so perhaps in closing, perhaps if I could just ask Your Excellency, President Kagame, one final question, maybe one thought that you can share with us. I think what's becoming clear is that some countries have started running and some countries are really doing well right now in terms of developing ICTs and having practical applications of that in their countries. The question is, the continent needs to move as a whole. And I'm wondering, what kind of leadership do you think is required in our regional and Pan-African bodies to accelerate this ICT development, ICT agenda across the continent. And I'm wondering, maybe we even need to set regional standards. Should there be commitments by governments, for example, to invest a fixed percentage of GDP towards ICT development? How can we move the continent forward, and what kind of leadership is required, Your Excellency?
I think the kind of leadership that is required is for all of us to try and learn from different examples and best practices. Work together, learn from each other. You see, I'm a bit hesitant to say, let's legislate, let's make sure, let's make statements that we need to put so much into. I think what we need to do is for us across the continent to internalize, first of all, that Africa is lagging behind and almost on everything. And there is no good reason for that, because otherwise we have everything to enable us to actually move from where we are to where we want to be. Africa has everything. So it's about leadership, it's about organization, it's about management, it's about commitment to make a difference for ourselves, to transform the lives of our people across the continent. So we can only succeed if we understand the magnitude of the problem, but also the fact that we have sufficient resources to overcome that, whether human or other resources. So now the question is always, why don't we actually do what we know we should be doing to make that transformation, either through leapfrogging or other ways? And again, I think the point has been made by various leaders here on the panel that it's not useful to just take, even if it is one important thing, and isolate it from the rest. It's about interaction. It's about how things work together and how they may be linked, and looking at it as such, that's when we are able to move forward. So do we first understand and believe that ICTs are a central part of the things we need to consider for the overall transformation, and not just seeing ICT as one entity, but certainly understand it in its full dimension and how important it is in supporting and driving the progress or success in many other sectors. Now, in the national plans of our countries, when we are planning, whether it is budgets or different things, investments that have to be made, do we give it its right place? That's very important. Do we understand that and understand the urgency of this transformation that has got to take place, and where we are and where we want to be? So I'm a bit hesitant, therefore, to say, for example, in agriculture, which was also talked about earlier, we made certain commitments on our continent at the AU level, and said we need, in our national budgets to earmark, about 10% or something like that for agriculture. That was a good thing. It highlighted agriculture and so on and so forth. But from that time up to now, you find progress has been dismal. So then the question is, does just talking about earmarking, certain levels of investment actually mean that you're going to do it? it only helps that you keep it in your mind, and it helps in your planning. But there's something else. We have to decide whether we are going to do it. So it's no longer the information we lack about many things we have to do, but I don't know where we get lost on the way, and we find we are not doing exactly what we have discussed so many times that makes sense for our development. So the kind of leadership, therefore, you are asking, I think, comes based on some of the many ideas, or rather the many ideas that were generated in this room, including the young people, the young lady who has just spoken. It's these people, it's we the leaders, but how do we interact and make the kind of sense that is required to be made? So I don't know whether it is saying let's have 10% or 5% or this or so much in our budgets. I think it's more important first say, let's give it its right place and let's understand it as a central element in the whole transformation and development process.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed. And I think that is perhaps an appropriate place to leave this conversation. Thank you very much indeed to our Excellencies. I think perhaps very briefly in summary, I think our Excellencies have recognized the importance of ICT as a priority of priorities, that it's key to integrate ICT policy in all policy. It's not an end unto itself. And we've seen that it already has a very positive impact on the lives of our people. Our ICT minister here even said that it has saved lives. So this is the kind of thing that we need it to do. President Museveni said that it needs to be applied. It's not something that we just use for using sake, spreading rumors and things like this, but that it can make, and we should make sure that we apply it to make a difference in our lives in transforming Africa, as this summit is all about. And President, you've just finished by saying that we already have the people and the resources to get the job done. And perhaps all that we need to do is just roll up our sleeves in the partnerships that we form to get that job done now. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for our Excellencies that have been with us today. Your Excellency Paul Kagame, thank you very much, sir. In his absence, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, thank you very much indeed. President Blaise Compaoré, President Ali Bongo Ondimba, President Salva Kiir Mayardit, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. Your Excellencies, we thank you very much indeed. Right, so what I would like us to do is if we could say thank you very much to our Excellencies. I'm going to invite them to leave us now and say, as we say thank you to you. There's going to be a photo opportunity in the foyer area, so if we could ask you to go through to that area, and I think the presidential press units will be available there to take those pictures, a group photo, so that we can remember your gathering here today. So, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, please, let's give a big hand to our Excellencies as they leave the stage and make their way into the foyer area. And if they could be joined by the broadband commissioners that are here, the CEO and chairman of Korea Telecom, if you could join, and Dr. Toure, if you could join this group as well for the picture that will be taken outside. So the three broadband commissioners here, Dr. Toure, KT chairperson, if you could go with the presidents for our photograph.